Hey everyone, and welcome to another Konoha Reviews, where we review games both new and old on all platforms. If you like the content that I make, then please subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a review when it comes out. Today we talk about the game Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2 in many ways is a special entry in the long-running Call of Duty franchise. It was of course a direct sequel to the much beloved and well-received Black Ops 1, and my review of the first Blops was very favorable as well. It was also the first Call of Duty that went into a more sci-fi setting into a somewhat distant future. Then there was the fact that with this Call of Duty campaign, it had multiple endings and choices that had real consequences with who was alive at the end or what state they were in physically. But most importantly for me personally, is that this is the Call of Duty that marked the end of an era. A golden era, if you will, of what Call of Duty once was. Now, Modern Warfare 3 had already come out by then, and though it was a bit disappointing compared to the earlier two Modern Warfare games, it still had its share of memorable missions like New York or Hamburg. But after Black Ops 2, the Call of Duty franchise went downhill fast and started to lose their fan base at a rapid pace. After Black Ops 2, they went full-on futuristic, with the next COD being Ghosts, then Advanced Warfare, then Black Ops 3, and after that, Infinite Warfare. Many fans, including myself, lost interest in these futuristic settings, and it was clear that these were created just to make the multiplayer all the more wacky with jump boots or running on walls. No thank you, I do not need that in my Call of Duty experience. I'm currently playing Call of Duty Ghosts for review purposes, and I can already spoil that I'm tired and bored of the campaign and I'm not even halfway done yet. So that should showcase how much of a dip in quality the creators made from here on out. The more recent Call of Duty games had some satisfying campaigns here and there, but that whole era of Modern Warfare 1 to Black Ops 2 can definitely be seen as the golden age of Call of Duty, where the games were solid and epic enough to the point where they felt distinguishable from one another. Now, I personally also love the first Call of Duty and Call of Duty 2, but they definitely are of a different breed, whereas the blueprints for the next 6 years or so since Modern Warfare 1 can be seen with that one title. So it should be pretty obvious by this intro that I actually really liked Call of Duty Black Ops 2. But I also know that there is a fair share of fans who already lost their faith and interest during this time. So let's take a deeper dive and see what makes this game tick for me. First things first, let's talk about the setting and the story. Seeing as this is Black Ops 2, it is a direct sequel to the first game with returning characters like Mason, Woods, and Hudson. There are basically two parallel timelines you play during this campaign. One where you play as Alex Mason, the main character from the first Black Ops, and join him on his adventures from 1986 and onward during the last years of the Cold War. Then the second timeline is current day, which is 2025, as you play as Alex Mason's son and are traveling around the globe to find and hunt down a dangerous individual with the name Raoul Menendez, who vows to destroy the world after he feels that everything has been taken away from him. Though on first glance, the story that I just described doesn't say much, it should be stated that Black Ops 2 has one of the better storylines out there, and one of the reasons why it's so good is because you really feel like an important player in all of this, where choices you make impact and matter to you and those around you. But more on the choices later. Let's return a bit to the story first and talk about gameplay. So the first mission you play already starts out with a bang and shows you that old school Call of Duty spirit as you partake in a battle in Africa while befriending a really crazy looking military commander as you shoot hundreds of enemies on the savannah. It's brutal, chaotic, and very epic. Just what I and many others want from a Call of Duty experience. One of the reasons, in my opinion, why Call of Duty went so downhill from this point onward is because there was such a bigger focus on only small squad combat in most games rather than these massive battles where you felt you were only a simple soldier in an epic war. Graphically, it should be mentioned that this game looks great. It was the last Call of Duty exclusively for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 generation, so it pushes its hardware to its limits, meaning that it looks so much better and detailed than something like Modern Warfare 1 or World at War. Character models look really detailed with great facial animations, environments are detailed and vast, and the effects and explosions look better than ever. I personally always love to see the games in the later stage of a console's lifespan, as you can clearly see what steps have been made graphically over the years, and this game definitely shows it. Now, I of course did play it on PC, so I got some extra bells and whistles here and there, but overall the differences were not night and day. Sound-wise, the game also delivers, with weapons packing a good punch and especially the explosives from mortars or artillery getting some extra oomph through your speakers. So on a presentation level, in terms of graphics and sound, Black Ops 2 delivers. The fact that you have these levels that play out in the late 80s is also very cool, and I'm glad they added these besides the levels that take place in the near future. Those are definitely cool too, but having that more grounded feeling and direct connection with the characters is very cool. And they do a good job of dividing the missions up between those two timelines. A little less than half of the missions take place during the Cold War period and vary from fighting in Panama to Afghanistan. I can also tell you that the missions in this game are pretty lengthy. It only has 11 main missions, but many will take you somewhere around 25 minutes to complete, so it's pretty meaty and it means they can explore each setting and level a bit more thoroughly. After the initial mission in Africa, the story shifts to the future and you have your first mission in 2025 as you infiltrate a secret base in Myanmar. Personally, I always love seeing games or movies that take place in the near future and see what they got correct and what they did not. Something like Back to the Future 2 is just hilarious to see how they imagined 2015 back then and how different the actual 2015 looked in comparison. The same goes for this. Sure, it's not 2025 yet, but we can kinda get a better guess by now what it will be like compared to 2012 when this game was released. In comparison, it would be the same as if a new Black Ops game would come out now and the story would be set in 2034. That is still a long way out, and so many of us don't know yet what it will look like, so it might indeed be quite futuristic for our tastes. Now, seeing as this takes place in 2025, it means that some futuristic things you will see are active camo, where you're nearly turn invisible, walking drone tanks that look like four-legged beasts, or soldiers that can take off and land with their own personal winged jetpack. Ironically, only 4 days ago or so, I read an article that the Dutch Marines were experimenting and training with some early flight suit designs, and though it still looks very rough and clunky, it amuses me a lot to see that Black Ops 2 wasn't that far off with flying soldiers, seeing that we are getting to see the first signs of that now, 4 years ahead of the story of Blobs 2. The weapons you get during these futuristic missions are also great, with some very helpful enhancements that feel awesome. You have certain sight attachments, where it makes a scan of the environment every few seconds and you can see the silhouettes of enemies even behind cover. Or you have a scope that marks the enemies with big red targets, making it easier to take them out from afar. Another really cool thing that Black Ops 2 does is that in each level you can get some extra fun toys to play around with by exploring the area a bit. You will often find a marker floating in the air where you can access a certain room, area, or cache and receive some new items you can use in combat. These can vary from mortars you can throw to blow enemies to bits, to a Middle Eastern curved sword to chop incoming bad guys into slices of meat, or even things like electric brass knuckles or bear traps to take people out that way. It's entirely optional, but definitely rewards exploring, and is also cool since many of the areas in this game are a lot wider compared to earlier Call of Duty games. Often you have at least 2 ways to approach a mission, by either going up high or low, and this even comes in the form of gameplay itself, where during an exciting chase sequence the game asks you if you want to play as the driving vehicle or the drone flying above to keep it cover. Or a section where you need to protect and escort the President of the United States, and can either tag along with her on the ground or keep overwatch with a sniper rifle as she and her bodyguards run from cover to cover. It's these little things that get appreciated since it makes this Call of Duty just a tad bit more special and replayable. And even if you were not to replay this game, the fact that you have this choice presented is still cool and feels like it matters, at least on what will happen on how you will experience things the upcoming few minutes. The third mission then has you travel back in time again, and as you fight in the Soviet-Afghan War, as you fight alongside the Mujahideen, much like Rambo fought alongside them in Rambo 3, complete by charging together with them on horseback. This is a great mission yet again, and an awesome example of how making dusty, plain-looking desert levels exciting. You get to ride on horseback, and the level itself is really vast and open, and the game lets you roam around quite a bit. You need to help with several assaults and defend the main base while you take on Soviet tanks, helicopter, and plenty of infantry. There's even some fan service here to the fans of the earlier Black Ops games as well. Then after this is done, you get properly introduced to the bad guy of the game, Raoul Menendez. Even though you have a brief interaction with him in the first mission, this is where his story becomes a bit more fleshed out. Menendez has worked his way up amongst the cartels, ever since he was a child, and the sole thing that keeps him sane is his undisputed love for his sister. Menendez's sister protected him from a horrible fire that happened when they were small children, but it left her horribly disfigured and scarred for the rest of her life. Yet Menendez feels that he needs to do everything he can to protect his sister, and stay at her side. It honestly is a bit of a heartbreaking and heartfelt story in history, and adds some much needed depth to a bad guy in this game. Therefore, it also makes it to where Menendez can definitely be put on the list of better Call of Duty antagonists. I mean, heck, he's 100 times better than people like Dragovich or Rourke, who you barely know anything about. Now, this is also a good time to talk about the violence and the portrayal of it in this game, since the Treyarch COD games have always been famous for showing some pretty brutal scenes. World at War showed some straight up war crimes happening that you could partake in. The first Black Ops had you involved in torture scenes or give you the ability to shoot soldiers who had surrendered, and here the violence is mostly just brutal with how it is portrayed. People get machetes shot in their necks, have their kneecaps blown right off, or in this case get killed by a nail file by Menendez himself. There's a short sequence where you play as Menendez as he goes berserk and heads to his home while destroying his enemies with a shotgun and a machete. It's really brutal, but very cool and satisfying. It is here also where the sad truth is revealed that by accident, a grenade thrown by Woods misses its mark and instead blows up Menendez's sister. Following revenge, Menendez has come up with a plan decades in the making to take everything away from those who he hates most. What Black Ops 2 also just nails really well is the pacing, with showcasing something new every 5 or 10 minutes or so. You are never fighting in the same similar looking environment for too long, even in the same missions. The Myanmar mission has you, for example, first battle in the jungle and amongst the ruins, but halfway in, you will enter a high security modern laboratory. In a mission later on, where you head to this luxurious cruise ship or resort on a floating island, I'm not too sure what it is, you first need to infiltrate unnoticed, a la like a Hitman game, after which you have some shootouts in the maintenance area, then need to use a small spider-like drone to travel around the air ducts in order to get a retina scan from one of the security personnel, after which you have a shootout in a dance club, and eventually need to chase and rescue a person as you fight your way through the luxurious mall. It's a great example of Black Ops 2 throwing something new your way every 5 minutes within the same mission. So besides just a solid presentation and story, it also has its gameplay down. But let's now talk about those choices and consequences that Black Ops 2 is known for, and which is so sorely lacking in most of the other Call of Duty games. So during the campaign, you can get certain choices that are a bit more clear-cut on what you have to do, like kill somebody or not kill him, but then others too where you have consequences that can happen if you, for example, are too slow to accomplish something. As mentioned earlier, on the luxury resort, you need to chase and rescue a female hacker as she is abducted by one of Menendez's generals. If you manage to catch up with him, you get a shootout and are able to rescue her, which means that she can help you fight a virus when it gets uploaded later in the game. If you do not manage to catch up with her, she gets kidnapped and you can get an extra mission to go and rescue her. Now, having the bad guys successfully kidnap her means that Menendez's general, the Falco, is also still alive and will still take part in things to come and might mess things up for you by killing the hacker girl. But then in the mission afterward, you are playing as Farid, a spy working for the good guys who's pretending to serve under Menendez. You get a ultimately very harsh choice where one of the good guys, Harper, played brilliantly by Michael Rooker, gets captured and Menendez orders you to execute him. Now, most of us would probably agree and think that the game wants us to avoid doing this. You get the choice to either shoot Harper or try and shoot Menendez. If you try to shoot Menendez, Harper does indeed live, but Farid fails to kill Menendez and is instead killed himself. However, to get the best ending in the game, it actually requires you to execute Harper, since that means that Farid is still alive and will catch a bullet when it's fired at the female hacker. See, it's pretty intricate on how those consequences ripple into effect. It's not a simple matter of, oh, this person will live or die and the rest will play out the same later on in the game. The fact that Farid is alive will mean he's able to save Chloe by catching a bullet for her. If the Falco, Menendez's high-ranking subordinate, is still alive and Farid is alive as well, Farid will kill the Falco with a gunshot later on. This way, there are many variations that can play out, and it truly feels awesome and like you are weaving your own story and path within this Call of Duty universe. And some of the choices are even deeper than they initially seem. There's at a certain point a part where you are ordered to kill a hooded man who Hudson tells you is actually Menendez. He orders you to take the headshot, and if you do indeed shoot him in the head, which is probably what most of us did in our first playthrough, you find to your horror that it's actually Alex Mason, and you, playing as Woods in that mission, have executed him. But to my absolute astonishment, I only this year found out that you can actually let Mason live, and he will even have some extra cutscenes that he is in later on in the game. Some of these choices seem very small, but their consequences are gigantic. During one of the last missions, you have another short section where you take control of Menendez and have the option to take out the US military commander, played once again brilliantly by Tony Todd, which we know from classics like Candyman, Final Destination, and also recently represented our role in the awesome Half-Life Alyx. If you shoot him in the face, he will not be able to make peace with the Chinese military, and this results in a horrible cutscene at the end. But if you shoot him in the leg and spare him, peace will be made by the US and China, and Chinese troops will even accompany you and help you during the final mission. And I also think it's cool that the choices are not as clear-cut good or bad like with BioWare games, where it's always clear what the good and bad choices are. At the final level, you are finally able to capture Menendez, and I remember so vividly on my first playthrough that I thought it would be better to capture him and let him rot in prison instead of giving him a quick death with a gunshot. But oh boy was I wrong in thinking that way, because what I ended up with is that Menendez eventually managed to escape from prison and visited an elderly Woods, after which he slit Woods' throat with his sister's necklace, and then dug up his sister's grave and set himself on fire. Yeesh, can you imagine that? That is the ending cutscene that I got for thinking I was doing the right thing, for not killing him outright then and there. It's honestly brilliant storytelling, and choices that are set in a gray area that are reminiscent of classics like the Witcher games, where there isn't always a good or bad choice, and both choices have negative consequences. I cannot praise this choice and consequence system enough in Black Ops 2, and I just wish they took the effort to put this in more Call of Duty games afterwards. Lastly, I want to talk about my least favorite part in the campaign, and these are the Spec Ops missions that you get, which are optional missions beside the main ones. But in order to get the best endings, you kinda are required to do them. These missions feel a bit like multiplayer matches against bots, as you need to capture certain cities by holding specific areas or cover a convoy of trucks as you take out enemies in the desert. In all these missions, you actually also have the option to switch to a real-time strategy view of the map and can control the different units under your command like a strategy game by having them move to specific areas or attack certain enemies with a click of your mouse. Some of these missions are over fast, but others take a while, like the 10-minute defense mission, and the action gets a bit old there since the enemies clearly keep spawning in until the timer is stopped or the objective is completed. Now, these maps are also made up like multiplayer maps where you can take multiple routes to your destination, and that is cool and all, but it's not presented very story heavy or in a cinematic way. Some of the missions and levels do look nice, most notably the rescuing Chloe mission, but they are in my opinion just a step down from the blockbuster feel of the main missions. Nevertheless, in the end, Black Ops' campaign is definitely one of the better ones in the Call of Duty franchise, and as I said, the end of an era where Call of Duty games were really worth checking out. Even though this game is almost 10 years old, it's still really well playable, and feels and plays better than some shooters that even come out today. It stands the test of time, and therefore in the end, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 gets an 8.6. It of course also has a zombies mode and multiplayer, but just as with my other reviews, I mostly just focus on the single player campaigns with these COD games. Now, as I said, I am currently playing Call of Duty Ghosts to review it in the near future, but I also want to review Black Ops 3 eventually. I have to admit that I've never played that game since I've heard nothing but bad things about it. In my opinion, it's going to be very fun and exciting to see if Black Ops 3 might be considered the worst Call of Duty of all time.